We have guest analyst, our buddy, our pal, the 2020 Pros vs. Joes co-champ, the real brains behind the operation, one of the smartest mofos I know, the godfather of fantasy football game theory, my favorite Ivy Leaguer after Natalie Portman, the one, the only, Wasp. Wasp, how you doing?
Hey there, how you doing?
Good, thanks for joining us tonight.
It's
Hey,
a
Wasp,
pleasure.
I want to thank you for sitting in our visible green room too.
Yeah,
Sitting patiently, watching everything. So.
What kind of flim flam operation is this?
yeah. Something tells me I'll be stuck in here the whole time. Oh, well,
Hey, what?
there's the screen here.
Wow, that looks like something you might have drafted, sir.
Let me
Yeah,
put on
this-
my shitty draft review glasses.
I don't see any. Do you have any Patriots? Do you have any Patriots on there, Wasp?
No, I saved all the Patriots.
Oh, you do? You do have one.
Main event draft.
You do have one. You do have one. I see you couldn't resist Mo Cox, though. I know you're a Mo Cox lover there.
Let them loose, Zeb. Just get it out of your system.
Yeah,
I know all welling up in there.
Oh
Mo
my
Alley
God.
Cox will always be better than less Alley Cox.
Yeah, and I see the little teaser for later in the show. There, we got Chris's latest heartthrob, Mr. Tremble. But we'll talk about that a little later. I'm gonna shut up a little here and let you talk about your team. But I couldn't resist.
Yeah, well, let's talk about the Tremble first. That's directly attributable to Chris. That is what inspired me. I did some research, and I'll be darned if this guy doesn't have some real upside, like a deep sleeper with a high.
Talk about a Wasp.
Sorry?
Talk about it.
Well, all I know about it is primarily what I've read in one or two articles. But I think the guy is quite a physical specimen, and he's going to be able to dominate, I think, given his height and his strength. He's going to be raw. This is going to be a project, so it may take a few weeks for him to start showing his stuff, but it could show up earlier than a lot of people are thinking. He's off of most people's radar entirely.
Right.
I can count out of all the drafts I've done 48 football guys. I think I've seen 2 drafts with Tremble being drafted, and one of them is mine.
I'm the other.
Did you say 48?
Yes, 48.
Oh my God.
That doesn't count the Kentucky drafts and
oh my God. Hey,
14 dynasties.
One interesting thing, Mr. Tremble and I we're both domers, so we have a little bit in common aside from being physical specimens, as you mentioned. Both Notre Dame alumni. So just a little random fact there.
I came across my new heartthrob Tommy, doing my draft prep, and you always look at the first couple of rounds of the NFL draft to see who teams are picking. I always, my sense to go up a little bit when I see teams moving up to draft somebody, and Carolina did that with Mr. Tremble. He is, a physical specimen, 6'3", I think 4'5", 940, but real good agility, and the tape, he pops on tape. He will block your ass in the next week. I think he caught something like 24 balls total in his career at Notre Dame, but there are a lot of parallels, with him and my guy Antonio Gibson from last year. Antonio was sitting behind Pollard and Henderson at Memphis. Tommy was sitting behind Komet and Michael Mayer, I believe is his name, is like a 5-star recruit or something. So he was used mostly as a blocker, but when he got his opportunities, man, he pops. And I see him being like a really big H-back type player, kind of like a Kyle Juszczyk, but just a lot more athletic and a lot more dangerous. And similar to Antonio Gibson, another reason I liked him last year, he didn't have a whole lot in front of him.
Right.
Tremble's got Dan Arnold.
Hey, Chris, doesn't Tremble have some music too?
He does.
Oh,
I just
yeah.
played that a little bit, but we're going to play it a little bit again later.
Yeah. All right. Sorry
It wasn't loud enough for Tommy. Okay.
Never is.
Sorry for we better move on to the top of the board. I didn't want to distract Mr. Vincent there with his new heartthrob. he'll be the next Njoku. But hey, Wasp, do you want to walk us through your first 3 rounds in particular there, sir?
Sure.
Or just the approach in general.
Yeah, the approach was to go with the flow and try to get good value. But I try to use a general principle. This is something that applies to every single one of my drafts that is based on mathematics. It's actually a principle that can be derived from some evolutionary models about the spread of favorable genes in populations. One of them is called the price equation. And the big principle there is that in evolution, what matters is not how good your genes are, but how good they are relative to the average of other genes that are segregating in the population. And what that means here in the context of fantasy is obviously you don't want to just pick players based on their absolute number of points. It's the number of points that they are likely to score relative to the average for that position. In other words, what's the delta? The delta is a bad word these days, but what's the increment you get by getting this player as opposed to a random other player? And that organizes my assignment of value. I always look at the expected number of points minus the mean at that position in trying to assign values to players. And that's what yields some of these funny drafts. I thought Saquon was a good value at the time, but now Saquon has really been dropping more and more. Maybe the brakes are going to be applied with news that he's starting to work out a little bit more, but we'll have to see. We'll have to monitor that. It's not uncommon for me to see in FootballGuys that he goes in the 9th or the 10th round now. And I still
like him there. I still think he's good value there. I'm considering Saquon. You know, I like Saquon more than most, but I'm still considering him. You know, if I have pick 4 or 5, what would you take? Would you take Saquon or Jonathan Taylor, given the injuries in Indianapolis?
Oh, I would take Saquon over Taylor now. Yep, I had a lot of early shares of Taylor when things were looking a little bit better there, but that's flipped for me. I'm very bullish on Clyde Edwards-Helaire. That's why I jumped at him. I think he actually could be in the top 5 running backs this year. I think their offense, the Kansas City offense, is going to go through the roof with the increasing strength on the offensive line, and just the revenge tour that this team is going to be on after having lost the Super Bowl in rather humiliating fashion. We just saw Patrick Mahomes just running around for his life for most of the game.
That's a great point.
That's a thing of the past. This year, unless they get more injuries, they get a lot of people coming back from last year. I think this offense is going to fly, and I think they're motivated to make it fly. So this is one of the reasons, and this might come up later in some discussions. I know there's some controversy over this. This is one of the reasons I took a little mini stack with Patrick Mahomes after CEH, because I see that offense as being so potent, sparkly this year.
Everybody loved Clyde last year.
Right.
And so he's dropped a little bit this year, but I can't stop thinking about Le'Veon Bell from his rookie year to his second year. Le'Veon was one of the top running backs taken. He was a disappointment, similar to Clyde was last year. He dropped a little weight. He was a better receiver than Clyde is. Clyde, is more of a power guy, but also, a true 3-down back. But I'm just seeing, the same kind of, I'm getting the same kind of vibe, off Clyde that, he, the entire team, is looking for revenge, and he's the kind of dude I think that is capable of getting it. And they build some leads. He's running in the second half of games. He's killing the clock. He's got good hands. I wouldn't be surprised to see him in the top 3, top 5 overall.
Yeah, that's
his
what
goal
I'm
line. His goal line carries were disappointing last year, though.
That's true.
They beefed up the line, though.
Yeah,
Right.
that should help. That should help.
That's what this team is betting on, and teams like this one. Hawkinson, I realized in this format, you really want to get pretty good tight ends early on. You don't want to wait and end up with dregs, because there's such a rapid drop off in the quality of tight ends. So that's why I went for Hawkinson after that. And then some experimental picks. I started getting excited about rookies with tremendous upside. And so they may take a while to develop, but right now I have Javonte Williams and Trey Sermon in there. So they would serve as, certainly by mid-season, hopefully flexes at worst. And then I had to go on a wide receiver run. One of the things I do in these drafts, especially the big contest drafts like FootballGuys and main events, I really bias my picks towards upside because I feel like you're taking a gamble. This is, natural selection acting on variation, and the more variation you create, the better. And so I like to take risks that on players that may be going a little bit later, but have ceilings that would be greater than somebody I could get earlier.
I think we definitely align, with that thought, is you need to, take a shot to separate yourself from the crowd. In a national contest with 5, 10, 15, 20,000 people, you need
That's
to
right.
do something to pull yourself out of the muck. And, those are the kinds of picks that will do it. I actually really like this team. I think, your running backs are rock solid. I like Sermon as a 3. You have him as a 4. Gio should be a good PPR back. I like Marlon Mack, always have. He might eat into Taylor's work. If Taylor goes down, that's a great pick later in the year. I love Hawkinson and Jonnu, my boy Tommy. The wide receivers are a little bit questionable, but you've got, your high upside guys, your Waddles. So yeah, I think it's a very solid team.
Thanks. Chris, do you like Jonnu over Henry?
I do. First of all, Jonnu was the first guy they signed. He's more of explosive of an athlete. I think, they're looking at that old Gronk Hernandez model without the homicides.
Oh, geez.
Allegedly. Jonnu to me is the Hernandez, and Hunter is, the blocker that will probably get hurt.
Hey, Wasp.
Yeah. So
Back to Hawkinson. You mentioned, you like to draft a tight end that has good potential. So, is it safe to say you like a nice tight end?
it's
What?
never safe to say something like that around you, Zeb.
Okay. So just my eval on this team, which, my viewpoint's always a little bit different than everyone's. My only concern is you got, Williams, Sermon, and Waddle. So if all 3 of those bomb, probably in some trouble there. But other than that, I like it. It's decent. But I think the how this team ultimately performs is going to rest on those 3 players doing well. And maybe Ruggs shows up this year, who knows? But
early reports are good, but they don't mean much this early in the year.
Yeah, for sure.
For Ruggs, but I agree with your assessment. This team could easily go south if some of these other, more sleeper category wide receivers, for example, don't come through. I'm interested to see what Waddle will do. He certainly has some upside, but let's see if they can do anything with it.
Yeah, that Miami receiving group just scares me. What you got? Fuller, Waddle, Parker, and
A lot of mouths. Yep.
Yeah, so that's just a little scary for me. I'm not a fan of the round 3 QB, so we'll see how that all plays out. But I give it like a B rating, and A if the rookies work out. So
I think that's fair. I think I would have rated
This team,
similar.
Wasp, if this team makes the playoffs, there's going to be a receiver leading the way, or your WR2 that we don't even know yet.
Right.
That's coming off of waivers. How many times have you had that happen, right? You think the team's going south, and then all of a sudden, bam.
Turns around, you strike
Yeah.
gold in the waiver wire.
Yep.
That happens every year.
This has the structure to where you drop one of those guys in with a healthy Sutton as your leader here on the in the receiving room. It can be a good team.